Welcome back, folks, to the Via Pinstriping page. If you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching. So in this video we are going to check out some paint that I mixed up roughly 2 hours ago. I did lose track of time a little bit, so I was at 15-30 minutes and 1 hour, which ended up being more like 15 minutes, 45 minutes, and 2 hours. So here we have some teardrop shapes with straight paint. Here we have some with some Japan dryer mixed in, which if you'd like to go look at the first part, the first video, you can go back and see how many drops I put in. And then we have some hardener here, hardener mixed up with some paint, which was One Shot Sublime Green. And then here we have Japan dryer and hardener together in the same cup with the paint. So here shows 15 minutes where I tried to smear the paint and to see if how dry it was. 45 minutes roughly, that's how that was. And now we're about at the 2 hour mark, so I'm gonna run my fingers lightly with the glove on, lightly over the solid paint, and see what happens here. So lightly, it did move it a little bit, so I'm going to push down kind of hard. See, it still smears. I don't know if you could see that. I'll run it the other way. So you can tell it still smears the paint at about 2 hours, but if you were to walk by it, it probably wouldn't do too much. So let's try the Japan dryer at 2 hours. We'll go lightly. Not really doing anything lightly. I'm going to push down kind of hard. Actually didn't do much, and I'm pushing down about the same amount. So now I'm going to try to really smear this. Alright, see what happens. So I got a little bit of it, just a tiny little bit, but I really had to push down. Now this part here, I'm not making much of a dent there, so that's pretty dry. I mean, as you can see, it's actually kind of flaking off, but that dried up pretty good. It's 2 hours. So now let's try the hardener, which I don't know if you can tell, but none of these have really left much of any paint on my gloves. So let's try the hardener at 2 hours. So lightly, nothing. Push down hard. And that one's also not doing much, and I'm pushing down pretty hard. So it's actually moving a little bit more than the Japan dryer. So the Japan dryer does seem to dry it up as advertised. Here it says it accelerates the drying of oil-based paint. I don't know why that lost focus there. Accelerates the drying of oil-based paint, enamel, and varnish. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to mess up the focus. Alright. So now let's try Japan dryer and hardener. I'll try it with my third finger. So lightly rubbing is doing absolutely nothing to it. Make sure I'm not lying, but yeah, I'm rubbing pretty good, lightly, any which way. So now let's see if I push down hard. It's really not lifting the paint hardly. I can't really get it to do anything. So I can't get that paint really to budge much at all. It's completely dried and hardened. Now I'm sure if I was to jab it with something, it would probably move, but I think you're safe to say that anybody rubbing up against it or touching it is not going to really damage I mean, you can imagine what that's going to do 24 hours later. That's going to be solid as a rock probably. Now keep in mind, I did do this inside of my apartment, so there is no humidity factor in here. It's probably around 70 degrees, and there is no sunshine because it is early in the morning. It's before the sun come up, so no sunshine to dry it. I would imagine that sunshine and humidity and all that, or lack of humidity, might affect this a little bit. But as you can see, you can still mess up the paint by itself 2 hours later. And this is one shot, so you know it can still be manipulated. With Japan dryer, it's a lot harder, but it still can be a little bit manipulated. Same thing with the hardener, but with the mix of both Japan dryer and hardener, you're gonna have a real hard time getting this paint to be messed with hardly at all. So hopefully that helps y'all to understand what adding the Japan dryer and hardener to the paint would do, and it gives you a little bit of an idea of dry times. So if you were to wait 2 hours, let's say you're at a motorcycle show or something like that, and the person wants to ride off on something that you're for sure they're going to touch, give it a couple hours before you send them on their way. I mean, you'd probably still be safe at 45 minutes or an hour, you know, with their clothes touching it and whatnot. Now, I would imagine if you were to add more hardener and more Japan dryer, it would probably speed up this effect some. It might be a different experiment for a different time, but let me know what you think in the comments. Sorry that I got a little bit sloppy with my times. Originally, I did hit the 15-minute mark, but then I added 30 minutes to that, which I should have done another 15 to get 30 minutes. And then I ended up just throwing another hour on top of it. So we're roughly at 2 hours. But yeah,